Welcome to Breakaway, the minor hockey podcast brought to you by the OMHA. I'm your host, Aaron Wilper, founder of the Coaches Site. And as always, I'm joined by Ian Taylor, Executive Director of the OMHA. Ian, great to see you, man. How you doing?
Great, Aaron. Merry Christmas. Almost New Year when we're doing this. Yep.
Yeah, this is a pretty special time in the I think the overall sports calendar, but specifically the hockey calendar. What do you look forward to from a sporting lens at this time of year? English Premier League just started up too, I saw.
Yeah, they started back on this week as well. So I do like that. Obviously, World Juniors are back in play. I actually really enjoy watching the Spengler Cup. I think that's a great, that's a great tournament, a great history. The club teams, Canada puts a compilation team, players playing in the American Hockey League, right, and European pros. And it's a phenomenal, setting, playing there in Davos. So I do really enjoy that. As I was telling you earlier, getting outside, been able to skate outside a few times. So that's huge on my, my ODR list, get out there and skate outside. So I love that. And, it's all good. There's no shortage of things. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's kind of, I feel like, it's kind of this week. And it just happens to be like a weekend to weekend this year with Christmas and New Year.
Right.
But it's kind of like that part of the year where time just sort of stands still, I feel like. And it's just like there's reality.
Yeah, you don't know what day it is.
It's not a Tuesday. It's a Canada Czechoslovakia day, or it's Spengler Cup. It's Canada versus Sparta Prague day.
Exactly.
So it's, but yeah, it's been, it's very exciting. And I'd be curious to know, are you at New Year's, are you the guy that's like, I'm turning over a new leaf, I'm changing some habits, I'm getting rid of some bad habits, or does it just one year melt into the next?
I mean, I guess I wish I could say that, but I'd be lying to you. Yeah, no, I'm not much of that guy at all. Are you?
You're lucky. You know what? So my wife a couple of years ago, and there's a name for it. I think it's called the Whole 30. So it's like 30 days without adult cocktails, no bread, like basically anything that's good about life. We don't partake in that in the month of January. So I'm taking our mutual pal Matt Rhodes as a kind of a thank you Christmas present on the 1st. Down to Seattle, and the Seahawks play at 1:00.
Oh, brilliant!
And the Kraken play at 5:00. So we're gonna catch both games, and I'm sure that'll be kind of my last day of doing some fun stuff before my wife takes control of me for the next 30. And
that's awesome.
That's the game plan.
That's brilliant. Now that's when, and again, I might be dating myself. I don't know, because people work out at home now, and they have apps and all that sort of stuff. But it used to be, this was, resolution time of year was they'd sell the most gym memberships in January, right? Because that was all those resolutions.
That's all part of it too.
That's
part of that's also that goes part and parcel with this Whole 30 thing. It also includes you got to go to the gym lots, and it's so I'm getting myself psyched up as we speak just to get ready for this. There's the
very good
the intrinsic drive and discipline that's going to be required. But we've done, funny enough, we've done it this will be year 3 or maybe year 4, but it's at the end of the day, at the end of January, you feel like $1 million. Like, why don't I just do this all the time?
Exactly.
So,
isn't that the goal? Isn't that the goal? Isn't it? What is it? 21 days to change a habit or make a new habit, something like that.
Yes. So yeah.
So that would fit right in there.
I haven't quite been able to piece it together for a full year, but maybe 2023 is the year where nice. I really lean in. So, but I'll tell you what. Speaking of New Year, I know I'd be curious to know in the OMHA world.
Yeah.
what is sort of this time of year represent? Like what's going on as an association, and are you already looking ahead to like championships? Are you
Oh
past
yeah.
that from a
Oh yeah. Yeah.
where's your focus?
Yeah, no, for sure it is. I think what's interesting is, Christmas time is still, or in that kind of Christmas holiday time frame is still a fairly big time for tournaments. But I think there's probably less than in the past, though. I think people are so busy. I think we're seeing a slight reduction where people want some family time back and a little bit of break in their hockey calendar before getting back
Yeah,
to it. So that's interesting because it used to be, again, with my two guys growing up, it used to be first it was every Christmas we were in some kind of tournament, home or away, and then it became kind of an every other year sort of thing. So I do see a change there, and I think in how families want to use their time. But I also again our seasonal calendar has changed that we're not going to be just into January and looking at playoffs starting, which was again
yeah,
one of the negatives of our season, and certainly one of the positives of the new of us adopting the player pathways and the seasonal calendar, which sees everybody playing meaningful hockey at least to March. So I think that's another good part. Like, we'll start back up after New Year's and still have a fairly good runway of regular season
yeah.
play. You know what I mean? So, and when you explain it to people, they go, well, what do you mean? The regular season ends the first or second week of January. It makes no sense, and it doesn't. It doesn't. So we've remedied that. We're still just a couple of years into it, right? But I can tell you, just mindset wise, it just makes so much more sense, and I think we're not jamming so much hockey into everyone's calendar, quite honestly.
Well, so I want to get to our guest in a sec, but
Yeah.
I just want to comment on what you just talked about the calendar. I was thinking about this
Yeah.
after one of our previous conversations. Like when I coached junior hockey,
Yeah.
you would see, so you bring in your young players and they got to learn the ropes. So from kind of, training camp to
Sure.
Christmas, and usually December rolls around and players are just, they're excited to get home and see their
Yeah.
pals and all
Dog
that.
days. Yep.
But the
Sure.
biggest improvement you would see in players, and I mean, your son Brandon would, coaches in OHL, and I'd be curious to know what his opinion is on this. The improvement you see, like from when the players return from Christmas to playoffs, like that's when those young players take off. And I was
Yep.
just thinking about that when we talked about the calendar. Like this is prime um, development time in the hockey calendar, at least from my experience for young players. The fact that you afford that opportunity, it's one thing to get ready as a team, but it's also, I think, as an individual player, this is a great opportunity for them to, really, put all the pieces together that they've acquired in that first half of the season.
Totally, and even having a little bit of a break, being raring to come back. You know what I mean? Being hungry to come back. I think that's huge. The idea that there's no rookies anymore, right? As you say, like you got that
Yeah,
ahead, pre-Christmas, and yeah, no question. Brennan always says to me, Taylor boys are second half players. So there you go. We need a little
for
warm
sure.
up.
Yeah, exactly. And so Ian, just I guess transitioning to today's
Yeah.
guest. When I say Ray Ferrero, what comes to mind?
Oh man, I got to be careful when we bring him on because I am a little starstruck. I'll be honest with you. One, just a big deal. Like he's a big deal. Um, you know, I know it gets thrown around a lot, but best analyst in the game, and
100% is, yeah.
and also, and again, he's traditionally been tied to the World Juniors, right? He's not doing it this year, and but he's also a guy, and when you talk about the way the game's played now versus the way it used to be, old school, new school, someone who totally appreciates, and obviously, I mean, he scored, he scored at every level, incredible rate in the Western Hockey League, right? Like, still holds the record out there, and
Sure
but
does.
but just an appreciation of skill, an appreciation of just getting better. And he's the first guy, and we'll talk with him about it, but he's the first guy to say, stuff kids can do today is just so much more than when he played in the league, right? And so I mean, wrap that all up together, Aaron. Yeah, I'm thrilled he's joining us. This is huge.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. And you know what? I first got to know Ray. So I coached in trail in the BCHL years ago, where he's from, and got introduced to him. And then a few years after that, I coached in Castlegar, which is just a community just down the road, and coached his older boy, Matt, who was a goaltender, and was just always really appreciative as how he dealt with me as a young coach, given his background in the sport. But I think what comes to me is I think the reason his opinion carries so much weight is because he wants to get it right. He doesn't just throw things out there. He wants to do the research. He's curious. He wants to get all the information and make sure that his opinion is something that he can back up. And which I think is not always the case in today's media, where we're looking for hot takes and quick sound bites that go viral. And I think the other aspect too is just somebody that has seen the game literally from all levels. He's been, a player. He's been a parent. The broadcaster. I mean, he's really, from the World Juniors to the World Championships to the NHL.
Right.
He's seen it through every, I think, possible lens, and so I think that really just adds a lot of layers and to how he views the game, and I think just importantly where he sees it going. So this will be a really, like I said, Ray's spoken at our conference a handful of times, some of our most popular presentations and videos, and I think just has a really keen insight just on, I think for the purpose of this conversation, minor hockey and how we kind of create an optimal experience for young players, both from a developmental side, but also just from a, enjoying the game and becoming and having a great experience that's going to impact them for the rest of their life. So, and for anybody that's not familiar with Ray, a couple quick statistics here. So, Ray played over 1,200 games in the National Hockey League with the New York Islanders, the Los Angeles Kings, the New York Rangers, St. Louis Blues, and Atlanta Thrashers. Ian, you mentioned, still holds the goal scoring record in the Western Hockey League with 108 goals, 108. 72 games with the 108, the Brandon Wheat Kings. I got to think that one's nobody's going to touch that one. That's remarkable. And since retiring, has been, I think most hockey fans, he's been a part of your Christmas holidays through his coverage with the World Juniors, but as mentioned, he's been involved with the NHL broadcast, World Hockey Championships. He's I feel like his voice is kind of been a fixture in if you're Canadian anyways, in your living room. So really excited to chat with Ray, and we will be right back with him after the break. The Coaches Site is a proud partner of the OMHA, along with many of the top development organizations in the world. The Coaches Site was created to provide hockey's top coaches, leaders, and performance experts with a platform to share their experience and insights with amateur coaches and minor hockey organizations, with the goal of enhancing the development opportunity for all players. A membership includes access to 500 hours of educational videos, a library of over 700 drills, articles breaking down the latest tactics and systems, and our newly released Initiation Skills Series, which provides a video-based development curriculum for the first 3 years of a player's minor hockey career. Regardless of the level you coach, the Coaches Site is going to provide you the ultimate coaching toolkit. Listeners of the Breakaway Podcast can save 25% off an annual membership by using the code OMHA when they register. Again, use the code OMHA and get registered today. Ray, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Merry Christmas. Hope everything's good.
It is. Well, Ian and I were just talking this week between Christmas and New Year's. I don't know if there's a better week of sports in the calendar, which, I mean, you're probably more familiar than anybody with, especially as it relates to hockey. When was the first year you did the World Juniors?
2012 in Calgary and Edmonton, and I was terrified.
Really? What was terrifying?
I didn't know any of the players. I
Yeah.
I had no touch points on how to do a tournament. I'd never done a tournament. I had done by that time about 9 years or so of NHL games, but you go in, you do one game, you move on to the next one, you do another game. And, now I'm doing 2 games a day, with at the start, 40 strangers. I mean, I'm doing a Finland Slovakia game. Like, what are the chances?
A lot of consonants. Yeah.
Yeah. I got to tell you, and I mean this, like, we poke lots of fun at it during, on Twitter and stuff, but Gord Miller is just been an amazing partner for all those years for me, because he would literally walk me through each name.
No
And
kidding.
he's trying to do his own prep. And now, so we'd go through, like, for example, once you learn the rule of the language, the letters as they appear on the paper make sense to you. Like, there's no way I see is it's, except it is. Right. And so in the game, as you're trying to do it free flow and not look down each time the player makes a pass to go, who the heck is that? The first tournament, the first couple of days, I didn't sleep. I was like, these names were rattling around in my head, just like, because I wanted to get it right. And the once you get into the tournament, like, you get into a little bit of a flow. But man, that first week I was underwater big time.
Well, in terms of the on ice product, when you look at 2012 and up until last year or this past summer when you wrapped up, how has the game evolved? And that's a pretty small sample size, but it seems like the game has come a long way, or at least it looks different than
well,
it did 10 years
it
ago.
does, Aaron, for sure. But I'll before I get to the meat of the answer, like, in that first tournament, Mika Zibanejad was playing. Like, it's not like the guys that were playing aren't very good. So, like, to say, like, the game continues to get better and better and better, it does skill wise for sure. But it's not like the guys 10, 12 years ago were around, or, were getting around in rubber boots. Like, they
Sure.
could play. And so the difference in the game, I think, is it's become more skill based, less physical based. It opens the door for guys that aren't quite as strong. Certainly from my day, I mean, you would go to the front of the net and the defensemen were 220 pounds. Like,
right.
Like, you won't hear me in a broadcast say, oh, a guy's got to go to the tough area, because every time I think of the tough area, I think of Darian Hatcher and Scott Stevens and guys that would, pick you up and pitch you in the corner. And there were no penalties.
And that's a different sport. Yeah.
That was a different, I look at some of the old time games that come on and I'm like, there's 5 penalties a shift. And I'm not saying it's better. That was just the way it is. But when I look at the players now, they can do things on the ice at a speed that players prior just couldn't. So where somebody might have tried a toe drag before, it would have been done at a much slower pace. Picture Mike Modano, one of the greatest skaters ever to play. Like, he could skate in this era and you wouldn't even notice him out there. Like, he'd look the same as everybody else. But I remember him making moves, like he would drag it into his feet and pull it out on the other side on his backhand. Like, I would never been able to do that. Certainly not at the speed he was. So that stuff has changed. Defense into the offense has changed. That used to be a rarity. Now it's a requirement. Penalty killing has become way more aggressive. And they had a chunk of years where they just totally dominated the power plays. Now what's happening is there's 5 start points for the power play. Nobody's in the same place other than Ovi for more than 5 seconds. So the penalty killers now are constantly having to search and find and react to where these players are on the ice. You might, one of my favorite players right now is Tage Thompson. You might picture Tage Thompson scoring from the top of the left circle all the time. But there's lots of times he's in the bumper spot. Like he'll move up on the top. If you're trying to deny that one-timer, you got to find him first. So I guess all of those things become into the tactical evolution of what I see on the ice. I like the way the game has gone. I almost like all of it. I wish there was more. I wish there was more in close play, but the game is spread out so much that like you rarely see guys spinning off checks anymore. I used to find that really fascinating because it was a part of my game, maybe, that I'm in this tight spot. How do I get out of here? There's not many tight spots because you can't. If you get to a tight spot and a guy spins on you, the only way to stop him is to put your stick out. Well, that's a hooking penalty now.
Yeah.
So you have to change the way you defend. But I love watching some of the goals the guys score today. I love there's a guy nobody probably talks about much. Have you watched Miro Heiskanen play? Like, oh my God, he's just an amazing player.
Yeah. Just smooth,
he covers the ice like a gazelle. It's like nothing. And I'm like, man, I watch him play and I'm like, yeah, we didn't have that. That wasn't there 10 years ago. It just wasn't. Brian Leach, maybe, but there wasn't many.
Well, let me ask you this. If you were a coach in today's game, would Michigan style goals make it into your practice plan?
It wouldn't be in a practice plan, but if you can do it, do it. Like what here's the thing. I'm going to give you 3 plays, and I want you guys to tell me the difference in all of them. Okay, Connor Bedard's Michigan play. A kid for the Finns yesterday goes down the right wing, gets forced behind the net, wraparound, scores. Right? Wraparound.
Yep.
Brady Tkachuk gets a breakaway in the Ottawa Senators game yesterday, goes between his own legs and flips it up over the net. Aren't those all showy, selfish plays? No, it's bullshit. People are like this stuff about Bedard's Michigan play. That goalie made a heck of a save.
Sure did.
He's behind the goal line, and he created a legit scoring chance. What's he supposed to do? Chip it back in the corner and go cycle it again? He's got a way to get the puck to a scoring area, and if the goalie doesn't keep himself upright, that's in. But Brady Tkachuk had a breakaway and went through his legs. I don't have a problem with any of it because if they can create a mismatch that gives them a chance to score, I don't find it selfish at all. I find it a guy trying to score. What about a guy taking a slap shot from the wing? That's pretty selfish. He could have passed it back to the D. Honestly, I'm so frustrated the last couple of days just reading through Twitter and some of the guys that are writing it. Fans can, they get emotional about watching the team, and I get all that, but they're saying, you need to play Canadian hockey. What's that? Go keep running into the end boards? The game has evolved. It's evolved. It's different. These kids can do things that the old Canadian way couldn't, so they didn't.
Exactly.
Ray, I just wanted to throw in there because the other one from that game was Fantilli, and what a player he is. Mm-hmm. And he made the similar play, but the defender, it wasn't the goalie who got it was the defender actually got a stick. So even how they defend, now there's an awareness of this is a possibility, whereas the first couple of times it happened, everyone's just standing around and kind of what happened, right? Now there's actually an action reaction, right? Like the defender was totally aware of that. This wasn't, out of the blue. It was, I got to be prepared for a guy coming around that post. Wherever the puck is.
Right, wherever it is, he's gonna take it from. It's not just necessarily going to go up the boards back to the point. This guy might try to take it from behind the net in here. Right. When I was still running, when Landon was coming up, so my son Landon, who's now 31, he was like 12 and 13 at the time, and I was running summer skill stuff for their group of kids. Henrik Zetterberg used to do this move that nobody else really did very much, and he would come down the right side, and he would slide the puck on the inside of the defenseman and work around the defenseman and shoot it from the other side. I thought it was the most creative thing. Or he'd go on the inside and lift the D's stick and shoot it all in one motion. Well, eventually the D learned to play that. And then Zetterberg had to come up with another move. There's always going to be a push to try and create some kind of mismatch to make a defender have to think and react, because if you can get them to do that, maybe you got a chance to create the next action on the net. So what Bedard and Fantilli did, I honestly, I don't have a problem with it. I was on post game last year at ESPN, and I argued with John Tortorella for I don't know how long. And I love Torts, and we talked after. I'm like, I hope that was okay. He's like, oh, that was great. He hated Zegras' pass over the back of the net. Right. That was it Milano scored?
Milano.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, what difference does it make? It's not, they're trying to win as much as old school guys are trying to win. They just got a different way of doing it. And so what's the difference between Zegras standing behind the net and taking one step to his left, passing it out, and a guy shooting it in, or flipping it over the top of the net and Milano bunting it in? Now, if either play misses, now they got a back check. But the whole goal is to change the big numbers on the big clock. It's not to finish 0-0. And if you can figure out a way to get to 4, you're probably going to win.
Well, with that being said, Ray, so I think what's really unique about your career is that you've seemingly experienced the game through every possible lens, be it a player, parent, you've been on the ice coaching, obviously as an analyst. If you were involved at the minor hockey level today, what would sort of encapsulate your philosophy, or how you would, the sort of development experience you'd want to offer your players?
My mantra, my foundation would be, my goal is to make your son or daughter better in April than they are in September. I'm not sure how many games we're going to win, but we'll be competitive. We will play with the puck as much as possible. I will try to teach as much awareness as possible, so when the puck comes to your kid, they can see what the next play is. Now, we might turn the puck over because we're trying to make the next play and it's not the right play, but that's just fine. We also have a goalie wearing $8,000 worth of equipment back there. He's allowed to make a save. So I want my team to play with the puck, to learn to read the play going as fast as you can. And my goal, my one goal, will be to be better in April at the end of the year than we are in September at the start of the year.
I mean, that's I'm going to use the word, it's a pretty simple approach, Ray. Like, and I don't mean that.
But Ian,
negatively.
don't you think?
I mean,
no, but don't you?
But isn't that? Yeah, go ahead.
Ian, don't you think that in almost everything, the more complicated something becomes, the less likely it is to be completed?
I do. Like, what I'm saying is, I'm saying every coach. I'm saying every coach should have just should write down what you just said, and there's their preseason parent meeting. Quite honestly, like I'm saying simple is good in this case, because I think more than anything, it allows everybody to understand, one, where we're going, but and two, what the approach is going to be, not just strictly based on the standings, right? Like, I mean, that's where things get out of hand, because if it's the end of October, or we're here at our kind of halfway point, we're here at our Christmas point, and if everything is based, if success is based on what the standings say, and your standings aren't great, your win-loss record isn't great, what kind of atmosphere is there for the rest of the year, right? No, believe me, I'm just for me, it's minor hockey coaches, take note. That's what I'm saying.
Well, here's another thing. I often wonder, as the kids start to, the level of play starts to rise, and the tournaments and things become more competitive and all that. Even at that point, why are we spending so much time teaching systematic hockey to the players? You can teach These kids are smart. You can teach them with a set of salt shakers how to play a system in 2 weeks. And then you put them on the ice, and each time they screw up the system, we now have video everywhere. Show
Yeah.
them on the video, like, okay, you're outside here, 2 steps in, you could be here. Like, for example, I'll use the goal against Canada because I'm sure most people saw the game, but um, the Czech defender came in and Fantilli was covering the point, and he knew the defenseman was there, but the guy got inside him and
Right.
pushed it in the back door. It's a beautiful play. Now, if that's minor hockey, right? If it's not the World Junior Tournament, but it's minor hockey, you could show that goal to the player because this is part of system and it's also part of teaching and coaching. Show him the video and say, hey, Adam, if you were back one stride towards the sideboards, that defenseman has to go in front of you. You'll see it every time. But because you were inside, he went on your back. You didn't catch him in time. But that's video, that's coaching. We can show the players this. I want my players over the course of the year to be able to do things more skillfully, quicker, and more consistently. But if you're spending half the practice or a third of the practice working on systematic defensive zone coverage, you're wasting your ice time. That stuff can be done in my opinion, in a far tighter off the ice session. And even if you scramble around a bit in your zone, you can still coach it. You can still teach it. Now you have the players all have an idea. They all watch TV. They all watch the games. They can see where they're supposed to be. You give them some early guidance, let them play, give them some more guidance, let them play, let them make mistakes, teach them out of their mistakes. If they never make a mistake, what are you doing as a coach? What are you coaching? If they never have the freedom to make mistakes, what are you doing? You're just standing there with a team jacket on behind the bench, changing the lines. Coach, help, support. They screw up, teach them so they don't do it again. And if they do it again, teach them again. That's the whole point of minor hockey. In not minor hockey, that's the whole point of minor sport.
Yeah.
Teach, support. When they make a mistake, give them guidance so they can learn it. That's the only way that we do it with math. Why don't we do it with sport?
Well, I think going back to your comment, Ray, about, how the outlook for the year, I just imagine that, if you get all the adults involved in the same room and you give that speech, like all of the temperature just drops for everybody, right? And then now people might actually be able to enjoy the game. But I want to go back to your salt shaker comment. So one of the most influential conversations, and I mean this sincerely, in my life, not only as a coach, but especially now as a parent with boys in sport. So I coached Matt, your oldest boy, as a goaltender in Castlegar. And I think at that time, you probably came up to Castlegar, I don't know, once a month. And I can recall, I don't know if there was texting available at the time, but I can recall you'd reached out and said, hey, do you want to meet up at a diner for breakfast the next morning? And I said, sure. And so I go out and there's some small talk. And then you made a comment. You said, hey, I saw some things in the game last night. And if you'd like, I could sort of share my thoughts with it. And I said, okay. And so, next thing you know, you've tables cleared and the sugar packets are on the power play against the peanut butter and jam packets. I think the maple syrup might have been in net. And it wasn't like, it wasn't a do this or you're doing it wrong thing. It was like, hey, here's some things that you can consider. And I can distinctly remember leaving that conversation and running out to my car. And I would have been in my early 20s at the time. And I wanted to write it down, so I remembered it. And the only thing I had to scribble it down on was an old parking ticket. But I scribbled it down. And I walked into practice that day, and I'm like, "Boys, I got the winning ticket here." But my point is that given the circumstance, it would have been really easy for you to come in, I think, like a lot of parents do, and say, "You're doing it wrong. You should do it this way," or "I'm going to huddle all the parents together in one corner of the rink, and we're just going to gripe about how something's not working on the ice," versus saying, "Hey, like, all the adults should be together on the same team. And again, it's really influenced me in just how I approach, my own kids' sporting experience. But, given your background, obviously your wife, Cammie, you guys have 2 boys. How have you looked at that sort of parent-coach relationship and how you help navigate your boys through their own sporting experience?
Well, thanks. I'm glad we didn't lose all the salt shakers because we still needed to eat.
Yeah.
I will say this: watching your child play is one of the more emotional things a parent, emotionally connective things a parent can do, because really we just want our son or daughter to do the best they can, to enjoy it, to be the best player they can, to play at the highest level they can, basically to maximize their potential while they're having a great time. I mean, that's kind of the scope of it. In the way of it are all these obstacles, and it's pretty hard to have an exposed nerve when it's your kid. When it's somebody else's, you can say, "Oh, you just have to be patient."
Yes.
That's easy.
Yes.
When it's yours,
So true, yeah.
it is just not easy at all. So if you want to coach. If not, you can't undermine the coach to anybody else and or to your son or daughter, because they're going to have less acceptance of the coach's message. They're going to you might not like the coach. I can guarantee you he's got good things to teach. He or she has got good things to teach. Guarantee it. You might not like their method, or you might not like that they favor your friend's kid over your kid on the power play. You might not like that. And that's all fair. But you can't be diving into coach unless you want to coach. Too many, the old too many cooks in the kitchen. All it does is confuse the whole thing. You lose the plot about what's trying to go on. So what Cammie and I do, we've had with both our boys, as it turns out, neither of them play hockey. Reese is 13, Riley's 16. They both play hockey, or they both play soccer, rather. And we've talked to coaches more for information, so we understand what their plan is with Riley and Reese. That's it. I wouldn't dream of telling a coach who's played his whole life, and I haven't. I wouldn't dream of telling him how to employ my son on the soccer field. Riley's the older one. He plays with Henrik Sedin's son. Henrik, at one point, had to decide, this is how good a soccer player Henrik was, to decide, him and Daniel, whether to play soccer or hockey. They chose hockey.
Wow.
Just think of that. At 15 or 16, they were that good. Henrik watches the game. He doesn't say a word. Nothing. He'll say, "Oh, nice ball, good pass, good look." That's it. He's not telling the coach where Walter should play on the field. No chance. And he would be qualified to do so. So the parent that gets so emotionally involved that they can only see the small picture is really losing the plot. And I'm not saying it's easy, because I know it's not. I went through it with Matt. When Matt was playing for you, I hated every one of your defensemen because they could never clear he couldn't see the puck. There were too many rebounds, whatever it was, right?
Then wasn't the coaching though.
No, I'm like, he's defenseman. He's yada yada yada. And then when I'm watching Landon, it's like, oh, he was open. Why didn't the puck come back? Why?
Yeah.
Like everything revolves around your child. And here's the thing: at the end of it, if you can just take a half a step back, say you've come home from the game and he or she's had a particularly bad night. After they go to do their thing, just sit down for 5 minutes and kind of take stock and go, was that really the end of the world? Or was that one bad day? And if it is a bad day, name me the player that's had 100 good days in a row.
Yeah,
the answer is nobody.
So well said, yeah.
You just can't. It just doesn't happen that way.
No, well said.
Ray, I mean, one thing you touched on there, and it's this gets more into kind of the development pathway, and that's, you mentioned, Henrik Sedin choosing between football and hockey at the age of 15. I know you're a baseball guy too. I played soccer in the summer, played hockey in the winter, right through high school, right? Is there this need to specialize? Is it is it hurting that athlete overall? Because certainly out in, I'm sure you guys are seeing it in BC, certainly in Ontario, and it's not just people playing hockey year round. It could be people playing soccer year round. Quite honestly, it could be. Is that, is this going all in early? Is that hurting our sport as well? Or maybe say this a different way: is it hurting our kids, from either putting all their eggs in one basket, I guess, and the parents putting all their eggs in one basket, quite honestly.
Well, okay, so I do have a thought on that,
Yeah.
and that's if you're willing to get your son or daughter extra skating, extra puck handling, extra skill work, your only expectation is that you should get your child to that session on time and that they should give you their best effort. If they don't want to give you their best effort at that skill session, then why are you sending them there?
Right.
If they don't want to do it, but you think they should, how is that helpful? You're just standing there on the side of the rink.
Right.
They have to put the work in. They have to take the time out of their day. It might not be their love, and that's okay too. Parenting's funny. I've got 4, right? Age 34 to 13.
Right.
And I would go back and do lots of things different. Like I know I became a better parent as I've become older. A lot of it through experience, but a lot of it with Cammie and the way that Cammie views things. I used to have this saying. I'd say to her, "Look, I've already done this for 18 years. Didn't mean I was doing it right." And so I've learned of the many things I've learned from Cammie, parenting is one of them. When you specialize in a sport, I think that's fine. I really do, because nowadays, unlike when I grew up, I just played baseball and I put my gear in the basement.
Yeah.
And then I picked it up in late August and tried it on in case my feet grew, right? That was basically it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't cost prohibitive. Now I understand where it becomes cost prohibitive. It becomes time prohibitive too.
Right.
You can't, players are practicing more. So you might not have time to go to baseball practice and hockey practice because they might be on the same day. That's a real thing. If you're specializing, as we're calling it, like just focusing on one sport, the child doesn't owe you anything. They owe their best effort. And if it's not their best effort, then maybe you need to find something else. But you cannot say to your child, "We're getting extra skating, we're getting extra skill work, and you're not putting an effort in, and I'm taking you there." Who cares?
Yeah.
If you're taking them there, that's up to you.
Right? That comes up.
Yeah, you don't. All you deserve out of that is their best effort. And again, I'll say it again. And if you can't get their best effort, that is a deeper discussion that they just don't want to give it. They might love the sport. They just might not want to put the work in to get to a level you want them to get at. Their sport might be about hanging out with their friends.
Right.
They love the game. They'll work at it to a certain level, and then they're like, "Yeah, you know what? I kind of like the teamwork stuff as opposed to all the extra individual work." It's hard for you to swallow, but that's just the way it is. They're not you.
Well, just on Ian's comment, we had Ken Martell, who's the technical director for USA Hockey, on my podcast last week, and I've looked all over the internet for this. I haven't found it, but he referenced a study that the NHLPA did. I believe it was last year, and they went through their membership, and one of the questions they asked them was, did you play other sports growing up? And they wanted just to get, I think, a feel for how these players were developed and some best practices. And I'm going to get the numbers a little bit mixed up, but I recall was that up to 14, over 80% of NHL players had played multiple sports. And when they stretched that to 16, it was still in the 70s. Regardless. And I don't know if that's, being hyper competitive. That might be they're into golf or they play some recreational baseball, but there was still that element where these kids were, if I were to guess, they were just really, they just like competing, whether it was at probably checkers or, with their buddies at, whatever, basketball. One thing I wanted to ask you about though, Ray, is, you grew up in Trail. I spent time there coaching, and for anybody that hasn't been there, like it's like if they were to do a Disney movie on like youth sports, if they were to do like Friday Night Lights and hockey, like Trail might be the perfect location to do that. And one thing that really stood out to me when I was there is that there were so many people in the community who I'm assuming never got an honorarium. Like they probably didn't even get gas money, but had been youth sports coaches for generations. And they might as well have had statues when you were rolling into town. Like they're very much revered. Just based on your experience as a young man growing up and playing sports, like what would you sort of describe kind of or if you were to paint a picture of the optimal youth sports coach, what are some of those characteristics that they might have, aside from the skill development part, but just in terms of how they handle kids?
Well, it's changed too, right, Aaron? I mean, but I played in the Little League World Series in 1976.
No way.
Yeah. My little brother, Tony, played in 1981. Trails had 5 entries in the Little League World Series.
Wow. And we're talking like 15,000 people. Is that stretching it? Like it's a small town.
The town? Oh, that's stretching it.
Yeah. Okay.
The year we went to the World Series in 76, we had 19 kids try out for the team. 14 made it. So we had a coach who coached from the late 60s up until, I won't have the year right, but late 90s. Andy Bolesky was his name. Andy was a legend. Andy was disciplined. Andy was knowledgeable. And he could get, I think this more than as I think about coaching, I think there's 2 points that really are critically important. And one is the coach has to show that he cares, that he cares for the player, that I want you to be the best player you can be. And the second part is no matter how smart they are, they have a way to communicate to the player what their idea is. You could be the 2 smartest coaches ever, and if I don't know what the hell you're talking about, because you can't make it my language so that I can absorb it, you're just 2 really smart guys. It doesn't matter. And so we were lucky in Trail, like with Andy, was when there was a situation on the field, and baseball's far different. It's start and stop. Sure. It's very static. But when something happens in a baseball game, it happens fast. And you need to know if the ball's hit to you, you can't even really think. You've got to know where the ball is supposed to go. We were 11 and 12. We were so prepared because Andy was able to teach us about what the next play is. I'm a big believer. I said it earlier. When you asked about the foundation for my coaching, if I were, I'm a big believer in the best players know where the next play is. Not the play that's going on. They know where the next play is.
Yeah.
They're able to scan, to learn where everybody is, take a picture, just a quick snapshot, and the puck comes to them and they know where it has to go. I don't know if you guys are soccer fans, but we just, we're big in this house, of course, and we just watch Messi, and like everybody else that seemed to tune in. And when the ball comes to him, to me, what I see is I know he sees the future. He sees the next play. And that is, if you can help teach kids, okay, you're going to get the puck. Let's use this. A breakout pass comes to you. You're the centerman. You get it down nice and low. You should have the awareness to know, okay, the forechecker's coming from my left. He won't be coming from my right because I'm swinging right. He's not going to be standing there.
Yeah.
So you're starting to paint a picture. So where's the open ice? If I don't have room to skate, what if I stop? That means the whole far side's open. But of course, that happens in a second. So why can't we take less time structurally and systematically and start teaching the next play? I think, I don't say it's easy. I never think this stuff is easy, but I think it's possible. And I think it's really beneficial to the player.
Ray, I am actually a big football fan, as I tell Aaron all the time. And we talk about how hockey's evolved. Well, we just saw the World Cup take place where, people were calling it the best ever, right? The skill of the players,
right,
the execution. But I your one comment, when I hear the word scan, I think of soccer, football, not hockey. And I just don't think the term gets used a lot, but I as soon as you say it, I'm thinking, Messi has looked, identified space, where he's going to attack next, just like you just said. I think we often in hockey, the equivalent is, head on a swivel, but I always think of that as a defensive skill, not a potentially an offensive skill. So that alone, there's something, you can teach on ice, you can teach, you spoke about your salt shakers, you can teach off ice. I think, is that not the next, where this kind of, goes, that we can translate into
I think
hockey?
It has to.
It's incredible.
I think it has to, Ian, because the game goes so fast.
Yeah.
If you don't know where the next play is, how are you going to make it? So I'll give you a couple of players here.
Yeah.
That I think scan the ice at an elite rate. Two of them are retired.
Okay.
One of them, of course, is the greatest player ever. That's Wayne Gretzky.
Sure.
How many times I played against him? He'd get the puck. He'd pass it to nobody. Oh, here comes Jari Kurri.
Yeah.
Where the hell did he come
That's
from?
Right.
But Gretz knew where everybody was. The second I played with for 7 years was Ron Francis. Ron knew where everybody was, and he knew where the open space was.
Right.
He just knew it. Current players, David Krejci in Boston, he's been too slow for 15 years.
Right.
Guy's an amazing player because the puck comes to him and he knows where it's going next. The puck comes, it's whether it's to his backhand or his forehand. And of course, he's got the skill to make the play, but he sees it. Another is Nick Suzuki in Montreal.
Yeah.
I think that kid is so smart. I don't know when his first moment of panic is going to be, but it hasn't happened yet. He just gets it, and he just looks like he's confident. He knows where everybody is. He lays off think of the plays he makes. He lays off these passes to Cole Caulfield on the power play. And Caulfield's smart enough to find where the passing lane is. He moves. But Suzuki's looking to his right, and he passes it to his left because he can see the next play. I think that scanning of the ice can be taught.
Yeah.
And one of the ways it can be taught is in small area games, not a small area 2-on-2, a small area 3-on-3 or 4-on-4.
Right.
So it's crowded, so that it's hard, and you have to be quick, but you have to know where everybody is, or else you're hitting everybody in the shin pads with your pass. That is a superpower if a player has the scanning ability to know where people are on the ice.
I mean, when we talk about the skill of the players, and we're talking about, again, we talked about the Michigan, we talked about the ability to, the ride edges and all that technical skill. I mean, it's just gone up and up and up. But that superpower you're talking about, I mean, that's a mental skill, an awareness skill. So I love when you say you can teach that, because that's the old thing, hockey IQ, right? Like, you just got it, right? Some guys just have it. That's not good enough,
some
right?
Guys do. No, but some guys do, but they've got it at such an elite level.
Sure.
It makes you think that nobody else can learn. Look, not everybody is going to be Ron Francis or Wayne Gretzky, but why couldn't they be me? I was a pretty good player,
sure,
but I certainly couldn't scan and see like those guys. But I played for 18 years. So to think it can't be learned,
right,
is 100% false. Not everybody's going to learn it at an elite level, but people can learn to play their sport because they're doing it all the time. Through repetition, you're going to learn patterns if you pay attention.
right.
I think it's I do think it is, with the speed of the game, it will be a separator. Now, between good players and great players, okay players and good players. I did the Stanley Cup Finals last year. There was, I'm going to say 5 plays, but that's just a number, where Cale Makar looked like he was on another planet.
Oh, yeah.
Like the play would get dumped into his corner. There's nowhere to go, and all of a sudden he escapes and he's skating up the ice. And you're like, he was like Houdini. Yeah. How did he get out of there?
One man breakout.
And that wasn't, but that wasn't vision. That wasn't scanning. That was flat out athletic ability. And he's got it at another level that other people can't learn. But you can learn to scan the game. You can learn to be better on your edges. So why can't you be better at learning how to see the game, how to think the game? I know you can, but it takes time and repetition.
Yeah, I love it.
Ray, this has been great, and I think so insightful for our listeners. And over the course of this conversation, we've obviously talked hockey, talked a little football or soccer, talked about baseball. I know you're a big golf guy. As we wrap here, if I had a magic wand and I could grant you a wish to go see any sporting event on the planet, one that you haven't seen before, because I know you spend a lot of time in rinks, where are you going? What are you checking out?
I can only. How big's your magic wand? Can I have 3?
Yeah, exactly. No, you got it. You got it. We got to zero it down to 1. Gabby says you only get 1.
I would say this is a real toss-up, but it's either the Masters or the World Cup. Yeah. If I could sit on the 16th green at the Masters, I think I would
all
be
4
really.
days.
Well, I would move around, but I'd leave my chair there just in case I could come back. And then just watching the World Cup this past month, like just the emotion of the countries and their fans, and to be in that stadium. I mean, I think that would be something you would never ever forget.
Yeah, I can't even. My oldest boy is down in South America right now and was in Argentina when they won, and just I don't know if he slept yet. Like, I think he's still enjoying it. So
how about, speaking of fanatics and fans, and Messi's driving up to his house. Did you see the crowd outside his house?
Yeah.
No.
If you're him,
I saw the parade. It was bananas. But yeah.
If you're him, I don't know that I want that many people knowing where I live.
No. If I'm Messi, I live in Oakville.
Oh no, I mean, he couldn't get out of his house, right? Like, he was pretty much bunkered down.
It was one of the most incredible things, though. I love that tournament. I love watching him play. I think we are incredibly fortunate to have watched their careers. Like, Ronaldo too,
Mhm.
but Messi to me is just he's at another level for me. And I love that I've been able to watch and learn the game watching him. We actually saw him, Cammy and I and Reese and Riley. They had a Copa qualifying event in Chicago, and we were there visiting Cammy's parents. We sat, I'm not even kidding, in the last row of Soldier Field.
No kidding.
If you want to work out, walk to the top of that stadium. So we get to the top, and he's not even playing because he had a bit of a back issue. But now we see, I've never seen a stadium, guys, with more of one jersey.
Right.
Messi Argentina, Messi Barca, all these different number 10 jerseys all over. Start of the second half, he's warming up, and it was down at the end zone. And they kept showing him on the clock, on the big board, and the place would go crazy. And he was just trudging around, warming up. And then we notice him walking around the end zone back to the bench. And he's taken off his practice kit. We're like, oh my God, he's going in. So he went in 27 minutes, scored 3 goals. And Cammy and I were high-fiving like children. We were and back to the scanning thing, 15 minutes of the, 20 minutes of the 27, he was walking around.
Yeah.
Just looking around. Yeah. And then he got the ball and he went zip, 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 scored. Then he scored on a free kick. Then he scored on a penalty. It was one of the great moments that I've ever seen, watching that brilliance. Wow. It was amazing.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's a great way to close it out. And Ray, I'll tell you what, again, really appreciate your time. And I think I speak on behalf of all Canadian hockey fans. We miss hearing your voice in our living rooms at this time of year, but also glad you're getting to spend it with family. And again, thanks so much for sharing your insights with us, and best of luck the rest of the season.
Thanks, guys. It was fun to come on, and that tournament was a big part of the World Junior Tournament was a big part of my life for a dozen years. It's time to be home, and so I am really happy where I am. That I'm watching, so I watch them go through it now and know that, oh my God, they got 2 games today and 2 games tomorrow, right. And 2 games a day.
And the couch is getting a workout.
It is. Yeah. Take care. Happy New Year, guys.
Likewise.
You bet. Thanks, Ray.